Daily on SAFM.
And it's 20 minutes past 6. Now, land reform, a highly emotive and contested issue in South Africa. So recently, the Vumelana Advisory Fund convened a scenarios team to think about the future of a land reform in the country. They gathered 40 people from diverse backgrounds to think of a handful of alternative scenarios on how land reform might play out over the next 15 years. Joining us now is Whittaker, who's Director and Strategic Advisor with the Vumelana Advisory Fund. Brian, thanks for your time this evening. I think let's start with why you as the Vumelana felt that this was an important exercise to start with.
Well, Vicky, like many other areas, it's very hard to see into the future as far as land reform is concerned. Vumelana is involved in structuring partnerships between people who win their rights under the land reform program and private partners and investors. And as we do this work, we see how complex this environment is, and we see how difficult it is to judge what's coming at us down the road. And when faced with those problems, one has really a number of different options. And the one that we went for was to try to ask a diverse group of people to get together and for a change to stop trying to persuade each other that we're right and trying instead just to say, look, can we as a group think about what the 3 or 4 broad trajectories are here and what the future might look like.
Okay.
And that's how we started the process.
And I want to talk about those 4 scenarios in a moment. But as you say, these are people with diverse backgrounds, demands, expectations, needs. Was it difficult to build a shared understanding of what is actually happening in the land reform space?
Well, that's the surprising thing. I must say this took some time. So this group worked together over about a year. It included, going away together, spending time together. It included meetings, teleconferences, and so on. And very diverse group, activists and business people and government people and so on. But the surprising thing is that when you do set aside the time and when you stop trying to just push your own point of view, but rather start to think about what are the options here, what are the alternatives, it's surprising how quickly the common ground builds. So the advantage of a scenario building exercise is that you're not committed to any particular policy position. We're not saying these are our proposals, and we're not saying these are forecasts. All we're saying is that a very diverse group of people involved in this work every day think that these 4 things are possible futures for us in South Africa.
So let's talk about the 4 scenarios then. If you can just take us through them briefly.
Yes, so this all started off by first thinking about, what are the things that we're pretty sure about as we think 15 years ahead, and what are the things we're uncertain about, and where do we stand now in 2016, and having thought about all of that, what do we think could happen? And so the first scenario that was developed was called connection and capture. In this scenario, land reform is captured by sets of political interests. The way the story unfolds is that the ruling party is concerned about maintaining power. It eventually does a deal with traditional leaders in the hope that those traditional leaders will bring votes to it in the next elections. The result of this, though, is that it ends up being that those who've got political connections and power gain and the rest of us lose. So that was the first scenario. I'm making it very short. People can look at landreformfutures.org if they want to see the detail. So the first one was about capture.
Yeah.
The second scenario was what happens when ordinary people become despondent and feel that there are no options left for them. And that scenario was called confiscation. In this, land is confiscated without compensation. The way the story unfolds is that land invasions take place. There's an outcry about this, but eventually, in fear of anarchy, the ruling party acquiesces and changes the constitution. And so we end up with land confiscated without compensation. And where all of this ends is that investment dries up production collapses, and even the people who've acquired the land are worse off than they were before. So that's number. So we had number one is capture, number two was confiscation. The third scenario was interesting. This was titled market power and concentration.
Okay.
And in this scenario, the objective of changing the racial profile of land ownership is achieved, but the concentrated nature of land owning remains. So that the race of the people who are involved in controlling land is different, but actually you still have land concentrated in the hands of very few people, and the majority still feel excluded and angry. So that was the result of the third scenario, concentration. And then the final scenario we titled inclusion and compromise.
Okay.
And this arose as a result of the government opening itself to engagement with a wider range of people, including many more people in the process. There was some improved economic growth, and mechanisms were set up to allow people to begin at a local level to bargain about what they would do. Nobody could get everything they wanted. Compromises had to be made all around. The government encouraged the dialogue, and things gradually began to improve. None of these scenarios are meant to be, clearly this is the one everybody has to choose. There are pluses and minuses with all of these scenarios. And one of the criticisms of the inclusion scenario is that although it's called inclusion, there is a risk that when these bargains are made, that only the people already around the table get to do the bargaining.
Okay.
And of course, we'd have to guard against that.
We'll have to leave it there. Thanks, Brian. Brian Whittaker is Director and Strategic Advisor with the Vumelana Advisory Fund. Now, transformation of the top leadership teams in South African companies appears to be back on the agenda, with BEE appointments up by 10% from the year before. That's according to Debbie Goodman-Byatt, who is CEO of Jack Hammer, which is rated one of the top 3 executive search firms in the country. And she says after very static placement statistics between 2012 and 2015, there's been a notable upward trend